In early June 1987, Theresa Ann Bier told her friends Peggy and Janice that she was going to the mountains with a man she had recently met and told them she was going to miss school for the trip. This man's name was 43-year-old Russell Shelton Welch, or Skip, a house painter who was obsessed with Bigfoot, also known as Sasquatch, and he had claimed to have seen it many times. Skip lived mostly off of disability checks, and he was addicted to meth, and his wife Shannon had died of a drug overdose. Theresa lived with her uncle, a man by the name of Blind Johnny, obviously a nickname. On the morning of June 1st, 1987, Skip arrived at Blind Johnny's house as they knew each other, and he noticed that Theresa was getting ready for school and offered to drive her. This was a deception, as Theresa had already planned to spend the day in the mountains with Skip. Later that morning, Blind Johnny received a call from Central High School, wanting to know why Theresa hadn't arrived at school that day. He told them Theresa was homesick, and he spent the day searching for her, speaking to various of their acquaintances. Despite none of them knowing where she was, many of them did warn him that Skip was not a trustworthy man. That evening at around 9:30 p.m, Blind Johnny reported Theresa missing to the Fresno police. Before they headed to the mountains, Skip and Theresa made a stop at his daughter, Chandra Welch's house. Skip was having trouble with his beat-up 1976 Chevrolet Monte Carlo. Skip and Theresa had made it to the Sierra Nevada mountain range, near the Shut-Eye Peak area. The Fresno police spoke to Skip's friends and family, one of them being 17-year-old Michelle Ryan. She had been enticed to the mountains by Skip during the previous summer. Skip's daughter, Chandra, had advised against her going. She knew that her father had a habit of taking young girls to the mountains and using drugs to lure them into having sex. Michelle had a traumatic trip, but made it back home safely, as fortunately she had gone with 2 male friends, although she believed she had been drugged. Police also spoke to Skip's daughter and son. Chandra had been visited by her father and Theresa on the day of her disappearance. Terry had also been visited by Skip and a young girl, presumably Theresa, on the same day, but Skip and Theresa could not be located. On June 5th, 1987, a police officer spotted Skip's brown 1976 Chevrolet Monte Carlo by a trailer park near North Fork, a town in the foothills of the mountain. It would later be explained that Skip had come down the mountain to visit a friend, Dorothy Davis. He was very upset and told her about a young girl that had been taken by a satanic group and being kept in the Sierra. Davis said he was high and assumed he was delusional. A few days after Theresa was reported missing, Blind Johnny received a threatening phone call from a young female. She told him that Skip was packing a pistol and wanted her to tell him if you continue to make trouble for him, you will have more trouble from him. Even your kids can get hurt. And tell the police that Skip had taken Theresa to school, dropped her off, and some unknown blonde girl had picked Theresa up. 5 days later, authorities were able to find Skip at his mother's house in Sunnyside, Fresno. He was arrested for a previous drunk driving violation. During questioning, Skip spoke very seriously about Bigfoot and claimed that there was a very large number of them living in the mountains and underground caves, and that he had communicated with them several times. When questioned about Theresa, his story changed several times, and he insisted on calling her by the nickname that he gave her, Sam. At first he claimed to have dropped her off at school, but soon admitted that the two did in fact go to the mountains to seek out Bigfoot. Then Skip claimed that Sam had run off into the woods with another young woman, and then later claimed she had left with some other campers. In yet another version, he said that Sam had gotten overexcited after they had seen Bigfoot a couple of times that day, leading her to running off to find the creature again, and he was unable to find her. Skip said that Theresa would not be returning because she'd be happier with the Bigfoot community in the mountains rather than her own home. At one point during the police interview, Skip, without the officer asking anything, said that if they happened to find Theresa, there would be no sign of sexual abuse. He claimed that although Theresa had been willing to have a sexual relationship with him, he would never have done that with a young girl, as that was not his nature. Skip agreed to show authorities where the campsite that he and Theresa allegedly stayed at. He led them to a small grove of trees at the meadow's edge along Browns Creek. At the inner area of this grove there was a smouldering fire among the heavy layer of pine needles that appeared to be somewhat damp. The campsite where all this was found turned out to be staged by Skip. From the topography in the photos, the local deputies were able to guess that the actual camp was 20 miles away, possibly in Ghost Canyon. Even though he allegedly lied about the campsite, both the meadow and the canyon were searched. 3 days before Skip's trial, authorities dropped his child stealing charge. They had offered to recommend a 1-year sentence if Skip signed a waiver allowing them to go forward with murder charges if Theresa's body were located, but Skip refused. The prosecution decided to drop the case to avoid double jeopardy if they wanted to charge him with murder later. Theresa Bier has never been found.